Hello, my name is Aaron Cavanagh and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of Post-Burnout.com. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. This is our website's podcast where we publish full-length recordings of our interviews, which are sometimes the unedited versions of our site's articles and at other times are exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thank you for coming back, and if this is your first time listening, thank you for checking us out. We hope you enjoy and consider subscribing, giving the episodes a thumbs up if you're on YouTube, or giving it a rating if you're anywhere else. It really helps us out. Thank you. Alright, in this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, the Irish soul pop artist Siobhan Lynch of Baba discusses her upcoming debut album Truth, the tragic story behind the record, her career, the vulnerable journey she took with musician and producer Enda Gallery to get it completed, and much more. I also want to apologise because there are parts of this interview where it sounds like I'm being loud. The reason for that is because my next door neighbours were getting construction done and there were trilling sounds as I was conducting this interview. It wasn't until later when I listened back to the recording that I realised that that sound wasn't actually getting picked up. So sorry about that, but otherwise I hope you enjoy.
Hi,
Hey Siobhan,
Aaron.
how are
How are
you?
you?
I'm very well, how are you?
Very good, thank you. I mean, look
It's
at that
really,
weather.
I know, it's really nice. I'll try not to keep you too long for a minute.
Oh God, don't worry. Sorry, I wasn't saying that. But the only thing I will say is that Virgin Media are digging up outside our house and I don't know if they hit something, so we've no Wi-Fi. So I'm
Okay.
I'm hotspotting off my phone just in case I go blurry or anything funny like that.
No problem. Yeah, and I also want to apologize on my end. There's my neighbors I think are getting work done, so if you hear hammering, that's what that is.
Grand, there's a pair of us in it then. That's perfect.
I wanted to ask actually start off this
Yes.
interview by asking a little bit about your own background music. I know that, for example, you sung with Dublin Gospel Choir, if I'm getting that correct, and obviously you were in
Yes.
bands like Champagne Animal. So I was
Yes.
wondering, like, for you, what's your kind of like background music in terms of becoming a music fan, then transitioning to a musician yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm that very kind of typical came out of the womb singing kind of thing. So my granddad was actually one of the original members of the Dubliners. So he Luke Kelly replaced him. So music was kind of always in the household anyway. I never got to meet my granddad, unfortunately, but his records were always in the house and he was always spoken about. So from that point of view, music was just always around. And then I suppose, just got involved with it from school. Um, and then yeah, I got into the Dublin Gospel Choir, and I was with them for 6 years. So I was part of the main choir group, and then I was part of their wedding group as well. But as you can probably imagine, 6 years of singing the same wedding songs over and over again, I was like, oh my God, I need to get out of here. Um, and yeah, I kind of dabbled with songwriting in school. And yeah, just kind of the normal route, really. Nothing very wild or wonderful. And then I was with the band, yeah, Champagne Animal. So half of us were in the gospel choir. So that's kind of how we met. And we gigged. Oh, like when I look back on it now, we were just doing free gigs all over the place, every night of the week. Yeah, and that kind of wrapped up around 2000 and God, I think around 2014, maybe. Um, and then I just had a few years of just like working full time, like a retail job.
Mhm.
And I started to get really, really down. I was like, there's something missing, there's something not right. And it was just that because I'd stopped with the gospel choir at that stage as well. So I'd no music in my life really. So yeah, I just started writing again and then kind of very slowly I released a song 2015, then in 2016, and then maybe one in 2018, and then I decided kind of around pandemic times. I think we were all like, "Oh God, what is life?" Um, I just thought, yeah, I'm gonna kind of go for this. I didn't really have a plan, but I had been listening to Enda Gallery, who I write with and who produces the tracks. I'd been listening to his songs and some of his artists like Strange Boy and Tolu, McKay, and I loved them. So just on the off chance, I was like, look, nothing might come of this. I just emailed him. I said, look, any chance you want to do a bit of writing? So he actually mailed me back and he was like, look, I can't. I'm kind of chock a block. And he said, but do you want to jump on a call and we'll just have a chat? And I think, someone you instantly click with.
Hmm.
We just got on really well. And he emailed me and he was like, I'm going to make space for you. So that's kind of how this project, yeah, came about.
Could I ask actually just before this project started, if I'm getting my information correct, I believe you enrolled in BIM. So I was wondering, was that just because like obviously before that, and you obviously had experience, with the gospel choir and things like that. So I was wondering, was that kind of an attempt to sort of get into the headspace of like, okay, I want to create music? Was it an attempt to make connections? What kind of inspired you enrolling in BIM?
Yeah, exactly that. And I wanted to get a little bit more formal training and a little bit of training around the business side of it as well. Um, but I probably didn't get as much out of BIM as I maybe could have or should have. We were kind of the guinea pigs we were the first year. And I just God, I have to be careful here. Um,
That's fun.
yeah, I'm just not sure they had their shit together at that time.
Hmm.
I had some really great times there. Um, but I got a little bit bored, I think, of the curriculum.
Yeah.
So I probably didn't go to the classes I should have gone to. I got a little bit bored and I kind of lost interest. I mean, I finished the course and everything and I did all my assignments and all of that, but I don't know what I thought it was going to be, really. Um, I think if you're straight out of school into an environment like that, it's incredible. But I was kind of 10 years older than everyone else.
Mhm.
So I felt a little, yeah, I just felt a little strange in the atmosphere.
That's fair. I actually have experience as a mature student too, so yeah, I get that kind of feeling
Yeah,
of not really
yeah,
feeling
yeah,
like, oh
yeah.
yeah. I was wondering then, when it came to creating the Baba project, what were you kind of like listening to? What was kind of inspiring you? Because obviously with the direction of this music, it's very removed from the Dubliners, let's say. So I was wondering who was kind of
Yes.
like inspiring you in terms of like, on like these are artists that resonate with me personally.
Yeah, so the album actually sounds a lot different than when because we kept notes kind of the whole way throughout. So if you look at the notes from the beginning and then you listen to the album, you're like, well, these don't match up. So I thought it was going to be a really soulful album. Um, so I was listening to a lot of Frank Ocean, Pip Millet, and just yeah, while we were writing, it just turned into something different. I don't know if it's that be is it that be if you ask me who's your absolutely favorite musician or there's so many I draw inspiration from. Like I love Jeff Buckley, I love Frank Ocean, I adore the Spice Girls.
Yeah.
So it's kind of really eclectic. So I always find this question kind of hard to answer. Um, and while we were writing the album, I didn't listen to loads of music because I always think I have a tendency then to kind of take on people's melodies, and so I didn't listen to loads. But I suppose, yeah, we kind of had a list. Like we had like Pip Millet on it, who's very soulful. As I said, Jeff Buckley. I don't know if you know the singer Petite Miller.
Oh, sorry.
You're fine,
Sorry,
don't
some
worry.
drilling just started.
Maybe that'll be the inspiration for my next album.
I apologize for that. So when it came to the album Truth, when it came to the album Truth, I was wondering how long the production timeline was, because obviously the first single was released about 2 years ago. So I was wondering how long the timeline was.
Too long. So it's a kind of a so I wasn't in the country for loads of it. So basically the backstory is we said, look, we'll release a few songs and we'll see how we go. And kind of very soon into it, and just said, look, do you want to just do an album, like in a collection of songs? Because I had that tendency to release one a year, kind of sit back, and then it was like, I think we should kind of go for this and write an album. So the plan was to kind of write. 25 or 30 songs and then pick, the way people do, pick the best or whatever, like fit into the storyline. But I was actually doing, I did 2 years of IVF. So I was doing it over in Spain. So it was very difficult, to be honest, to get myself and Enda together. So we'd be like jumping on Zooms in between like my appointments. We'd try and meet up in Dublin as much as we could. So sorry, to answer your question, it was nearly 3 years really. But by the time we wrote all the tracks and then, went into production and then finished up the album. We literally finished the album in January. Um, so yeah, there was this big long kind of writing and production and then a real hurry to finish the album in January.
When it comes to the album, like when you listen to it, I mean, like it's a very, it's almost like a concept piece in a way. I mean, like it's about starting somewhere and ending somewhere else. I mean, obviously, about the birth of your child, as you mentioned, the
Yeah.
album is a very, very personal record. So I was wondering, prior to this, a bunch of the songs have been released as singles. Was that something that, uh, did you have any kind of opinion on that in terms of like, I know when some artists release like kind of concept records, they don't want singles because they just want it to be listened to as a cohesive piece of music that's trying to tell a story. As I was listening to the album, the song "Love Like This" for me was a real like tonal shift in terms of like, okay, this is where the album is kind of getting into its like later phase. But do you feel like separate the tracks in any way takes away from that, or do you think the tracks can be enjoyed as their own standalone piece, but it just has more impact when you listen to the record as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of in two minds about albums because no one I like loads of people have been like, I don't really listen to albums anymore.
Yeah.
But I thought it was important, to do that. And that's why I put in the little interludes, because as you said, there is kind of distinct parts. And we didn't start out that wasn't the plan when we started out. But because of the way we recorded it and different things happening at each stages, it just was kind of it kind of naturally fell that way. So, and you're right, even even if you listen to the lyrics and the tone of truth, it's kind of coming out of a really dark space. Whereas then, as you said, Love Like This, it's so bright. And even people who have listened to me for years were like, God, it's really like a different person. And it's obviously not a different person, it's just a new phase, or a better phase, I suppose. Because I never really wrote very happy songs. They were always like, yeah, they were always kind of very introspective. And I think Love Like This, it's very on the nose. I mean, the lyrics are what they are, you know what I mean? It's a story. But they're not particularly poetic, or like you don't have to think about them too much. It is kind of just about joy. So yeah, we that wasn't our intention when we started the album, but it just all kind of naturally fell like that. Um and and there is really like distinct parts, it's kind of made into four parts, and that really is at different times over the last few years.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned the interludes there. That was something that I noticed too, because like I think that really acts as like a kind of a connective tissue between the songs because yeah, I think that's like something that you can only really do on a record. What was kind of thought in terms of like including that kind of like studio banter in between songs? Was it just something that was organically picked up and you decided it suited the team, or how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, I don't know if you've seen any my social media, but I'm kind of very honest on social media.
Hmm.
Like, kind of what you see is what you get. And I just thought it was important to add those little bits in, and to just, I suppose, bring some of the outside world into it. As you said, it's a very honest record. It's really written, it's it's written about the last few years of my life. There's nothing made up, there's nothing fabricated. So I just thought, yeah, it was important to bring those outside bits in. And I really think it connects the album really well together.
Yeah, no, and the other thing I was going to ask about that, I mean, you're talking about the honesty there. I mean, the album is obviously called Truth, and it's about like your truth and your life. I was wondering, was there any trepidation on your end to speak about these things?
Um, no, is the answer really. But I did do a podcast a few weeks ago, and it was the first time in a long time after I did the podcast that I just thought, "Oh god, oh wow. Oh, I wonder, have I overshared here, or have I said something out of turn or that's gonna upset somebody?" It's the first time, as I said, in years that I felt like that. I got over it in a few days when people were like, "No, look, it's helped me, uh, yeah, it's helped me process things, and, to hear someone else being that honest." Um, I think that if I wasn't, I don't think the album would be true to me. I think that I just think there's no point. Um, so yeah, no, there was no trepidation at all.
And one of the other things I want to mention was one of the interludes is a direct message to your child. So I was wondering, like, were you kind of thinking about that too? I mean, in terms of being kind of like something that would have longevity, I guess, with your child and with your family and friends in general. I mean, were you thinking of like kind of the future and sort of I don't know, almost like um I don't know, like making declarations that would stand the test of time, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So, the story. So I was pregnant with a little boy in January 2023, and we very sadly lost him halfway through the second trimester of
Sorry about that,
pregnancy.
by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And it was very important for me to tell his story, and because I think lots of women, or lots of families, and but especially women, are kind of told to keep miscarriages and things like that, deal with them yourselves in private. It's not for anybody else. But I just thought it was really, really important for me to talk about it and talk about the process of what happened, um, and then also to talk about how I've been dealing with that for the last few years. There's no point in me hiding away from that. And one of the things is with Apollo, I have a little girl now, which is amazing, but we talk about Apollo all the time, what he might have looked like. And I don't ever want him to be forgotten. So I just thought it was really important to obviously write him a song. And then I just came across that voice note. I'd his second birthday was January just gone, and I had done it just before I was going to sleep. And to be honest, when I first listened to it, I was like, "Oh, this might be a little too much." And I played it for Enda, and he was like, "No, I actually just think it's perfect." So yeah, I just think it's important for me to um give a nod to that grief, and to him as a little boy, and also for other women and other people that are going through the same, that there's no shame around it. It's shit, but it's happening to 1 in 4 women, and we should be being supported, and we should be talking about it so that we can process our grief a little better.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, like you have that liberation to tell your own story too. I mean, I understand, for example, if it was like someone else's story, you wouldn't have that. But like, I don't think people should be like, I agree. I mean, like these kind of like weird cultural taboos. I don't think this should be a taboo thing to talk about. It's like, again, it's creating like a greater sense of empathy. I mean, do you think about it in those terms, like when you're kind of crafting the record in terms of just telling your own personal story, in terms of how it would kind of like resonate with others who might be going through a similar thing?
Absolutely. And the other thing was, the although what we went through with Apollo was absolutely horrific, and I don't wish it on my worst enemy, something like, for me, it had quite a profound effect on me, whereas I could have kind of drowned in the grief of it, and I could have just put everything to the side, but it actually ignited something in me. And it kind of got me to push through and finish the album, because I just thought life is so short, and I don't want this to hold me back completely now, because look, apart from the grief, as a woman, your confidence gets knocked. You kind of start feeling like well, I was blaming myself, it's my fault that I wasn't able to carry him. So it was very important that I kind of stick to my guns, and yeah, his death was kind of a catalyst for that. So I think it's important to show that although grief is just an awful thing, beautiful things can come out of it as well. And I absolutely wouldn't have finished the album if it hadn't been for that, I don't think.
From your perspective, I'm sorry. From
Don't
your
worry, don't
perspective,
worry.
was the album therapeutic to make?
It was therapeutic for sure. But a lot of the time it was just taking my mind off things also. Um, because as I said, we did 2 years of IVF. In that time, I had two miscarriages. Um, so it was really great to be able to just throw myself into to work like that. I found it difficult. I found that my self-esteem was kind of on the ground during it, just because of everything we were going through. Um, but I got really lucky with Enda. He's um like you, very open to, doesn't phase him talking about these things, or um so we could have very I could have very open conversations with him, even though he didn't understand. He'd never been through anything like that. He was interested to know. We could chat through it. I could tell him how I was feeling, and then he could go, okay, well, look, I love what you just said. Let's turn that into a song. And for example, like that's how Love Like This came about. He said to me, what's it like now having Minnie, that's my little girl, in your life? And I just said, there's just no love like this. And he was like, there we go, we're writing a song. So yeah, therapeutic, difficult, all of the emotions. It brings up a lot. Well, for me, it brought up a lot. It was intense.
I have to ask, I mean, when you, like you said, I mean, you've been toiling over this for like 3 years now. So I was wondering when you finally got to actually listen to the finished album for the first time, I mean, did it feel like, I don't know, your subconscious kind of revealing itself to yourself? Or how did that kind of feel just in terms of actually listening back to it and kind of hearing, all those years of life experience and the work you put in kind of playing back to you?
Yeah, like, and I'm not great for saying these kind of things, but I was really proud. I was proud that I was able to push through and get to a place where I could have a cohesive body of work like that. Um, and yeah, when I look back, I don't know how we did it. As I said, everything was so disjointed. So to have a peak, because sometimes when I listen to the songs in isolation, I was like, oh, I don't know how this is going to fit in with the next song. But then actually, when you listen to it in full, I was like, oh, listen, the story was here all along. This was meant to be the way it was, even though along the way I wasn't quite sure how we'd get to that point. But I suppose maybe, as you said, maybe it's your subconscious knows what's going on, what's meant to be. So yeah, look, mostly really proud. I wish we'd had more time. I wish we'd had more money. But yeah, I'm really, really proud of it.
And one final thing I just wanted to ask was
Of
you're
course.
working with Welcome to the New World, so I was wondering
Yes.
how's that been like in terms of for like distribution in terms of things like that. I mean, rather than doing things completely solo, how's it feeling to be working with kind of a collective?
It's like a new lease of life, to be honest, because I was getting so I was doing PR myself. I was doing all, as you said, all the distribution, all the social media. But now I have a nice little team around me. I'm working with Amplify Agency.
Yeah.
Enda does all the distribution, all of the pitching for me. So it's nice to be able to just concentrate on, doing these kind of interviews, and yeah, not having to sit for hours on end sending out emails begging people to
Yeah, I noticed that like so
me.
many artists have to wear so many hats. Like, your
Yeah,
your attention is just subverted when it really should just be about the art and things like that.
absolutely.
Like everyone seems to have to wear so many hats.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And it's hard, and it would have been probably one of the reasons I would have been like, oh, I'm jacking this in, especially
Yeah.
with a little girl. I have a 1-year-old now, and she is busy. Um, so yeah. to have had to try and sit down and do all of that. So look, I'm really lucky that, that I'm working with Welcome to the New World and Amplify Agency are brilliant. And I have someone helping me with social media. So yeah, I'm building a nice little team around myself.
Perfect. And I wanted to ask now, we're about 2 weeks out from the album being released. So how does that feel now? Just like that kind of I guess sort of just sitting and waiting kind of anticipation. I mean, how does that feel like to just wait for the record to be out in the world for people to hear?
It's kind of vomit inducing, to be
Yeah.
honest. Um, Look, I've tried not to put loads of pressure on myself, because I've done that in the past, and not everyone's going to like my music. So I just have to look back and see how far I've come and go, just be proud of yourself. Listen, wouldn't it be amazing if I got to number one? I was touring all over the world, but like, yeah, it's not going to happen. That's not going to happen for everyone. So I'm just, yeah, I'm just really proud of myself for getting that far. Of course, yeah, it's kind of vomit inducing because I'm like, oh my God. Uh, and it's like the podcast, I'm like, oh God, should I have put that Apollo voice note on it? Should I have done
Yeah.
this? But look, it's done now. So there's nothing I can do.
I think you wouldn't be an artist if you didn't have some trepidation and regret. So
Absolutely,
I think
absolutely.
everyone was just like, "Oh, I'm uncertain about that." But I think if it like I don't know, instinct kind of carries you a bit. You know what I mean? So I think
Yeah,
if there was something telling you that was right, maybe it's intuition. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I want to actually just plug. You have a gig coming up at the Workman Cellar on
Do
May 23rd. That
yes,
would be just I believe the week before the album's out. So how are you
yeah,
kind of like getting in that headspace in terms of like kind of debuting it live in that way?
yeah. So like, this is going to be only my second show, playing these songs, and it's very different because it's full band, strings, the works. Um, so, and we start rehearsals at the end of this week. So again, I'm kind of anxious about it, but we sold out Little Wheelings in December, and that was much more stripped back. And I just felt when I was on stage, oh, this needs a bigger band, I think. It just didn't have the same impact. And so that's why I decided to kind of go a bit bigger with the venue and much bigger with the band. So it's kind of, yeah, they're kind of going to be my guinea pigs a little bit because yeah, it's going to be the first time we've played the songs like this. Um, but I'm really excited about it, and I'm excited to start just doing more shows and things because I've been just so focused on the album that I just haven't done any shows bar the one at Christmas. But you forget how much of a buzz it is to be up on stage. And yeah, so I'm excited.
When you were doing the mixing of the record and the production of the record, was that something you had to consider actually when you were like putting instrumentation to the record as like implementing it live later down the line, or was it kind of just whatever felt right as you were making the record, it would kind of be included? How was that kind of like in terms of like consideration for the sound of the record versus like emulating it live?
Yeah, to be honest, we probably didn't think about that. Like there's lots of really luscious strings on the album, um, and like some big arrangements. So that wasn't a priority, to be honest, when we were writing the album. Um, but now, we played with tracks in December, with just a live piano. But as I said, it just wasn't quite the same. It was a really good show still, but it just wasn't. So I'm really excited about hearing all the instruments live.
The final thing I just wanted to ask a little bit
Yeah.
about was actually songwriting for instrumentation. So I was just wondering, what's your kind of background with like instruments and things like that, and generally when it comes to, as you mentioned, like working with Enda. So I was wondering like how much of it is kind of like what you bring, what he brings in terms of just like the arrangement of the actual tracks themselves.
Yeah. So how we write is usually so in two ways. Either I will have a melody idea and lyrics usually on my voice memos on my phone, and I'll bring it to Enda and we'll work with it. But actually what happened a lot of the time was that we'd just sit down at the piano. and Enda would just start messing around. I can play a little bit of piano really badly, and I played violin really badly. But Enda's just he's just a wonder man, instrumental wise. So he would always play something really beautiful on the piano, and then we'd work from there. So that's how most of the songs were written. Really, they all started with just piano and vocals.
Yep.
And it's brilliant because I recorded everything we ever did, so I have everything in my voice memos. So I'm trying to think of something I can do with them all, because even the Truth, the demo, the first ever demo we did of Truth, was actually the end. Unbeknownst to us, we wrote the end of the song before we wrote the beginning.
Yeah.
So I'd love, I don't know, an album of, I don't know, voice memos or something. And then we actually picked a palette for the album. We said there's going to be, full band, and then I really wanted that kind of luscious string sound. So the same instruments are on every track.
Perfect. I think I've asked everything I have to ask, Siobhan. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or?
No, I don't think so. I think we got everything, did we?
I think so, and I'm just very conscious of this drilling
It's
now.
fine. Don't worry. Don't worry. I can't hear at my end here.
Oh, grand. That's grand. Well, thanks very much for your time, and
Well, thank you.
people should pop along to the gig, Workman Cellar, May 23rd. And then the album's out May 30th, so people should check all that out.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
Yeah, say bye. Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're an independent venture run by yours truly, and as I said at the beginning, liking, rating, subscribing and sharing really helps us out a lot. If you're feeling extra generous, we do have a PayPal donation link in the episode description, but don't feel obligated, of course. We've also begun releasing occasional exclusive episodes on Spotify, so subscribe there if you'd be interested in hearing those. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.